The Hall of Judgment stretches beyond sight, a cathedral of glass and gravity where light bends under divine law. Beneath its endless arches stands a mortal, weary, silent, unbowed. The consular judges hover like mirrored suns, their voices forming the verdict in pure vibration. His crimes are listed not in words but in memories. Worlds burned, oaths broken, prayers denied. And when the last echo fades, a single name is pronounced: Aethera, goddess of dominion. She will claim the condemned as her servant, his will dissolved into her command. Yet, as the divine fire marks his soul, he neither screams nor kneels. The cosmos dims at his defiance. From her throne of living light, Aethera watches, her gaze cold and distant. She has ruled countless ages, broken millions, and bent reality itself. But something in this man's silence disturbs her. The shape of resistance, the echo of something she thought extinct. Freedom. He awakens suspended in a sea of gold, gravity forgotten, time disassembled. The air hums with living currents, every particle shaped by Aethera's will. Her domain stretches beyond comprehension. Rivers of molten glass, towers sculpted from auroras, and a horizon that curves into itself. He feels her presence before he sees her, a pressure against his thoughts, a voice woven into light itself. She greets him not with words, but with command, a demand for surrender. Yet his silence remains steady and deliberate. Somewhere within that defiance, Aethera senses danger, not from his strength, but from his refusal to yield to her perfection. Aethera studies him as one might examine a newly discovered species. She commands him to kneel. He remains upright. She magnifies her voice, the sound of collapsing suns, yet it meets only quiet defiance. Around them the palace trembles, sensing imbalance in the divine hierarchy. Her servants, beings of pure code and will, observe in horror. The mortal's silence radiates not disrespect, but something purer, conviction. It stirs an ancient memory buried deep within her, a time before dominion, when creation itself trembled in wonder, not obedience. Night falls differently in Aethera's realm. The stars do not sleep. They listen. Alone, she walks among her own creations, seeking solace in perfection that now feels hollow. In the mortal's chamber, she watches unseen as he sleeps, his dreams unbound by her control. For the first time, she envies a human soul. In that envy, something fragile takes root. Curiosity, then longing. The stars above pulse slower, as if the universe itself holds its breath. At dawn, though dawn here means the birth of a new star, she calls him to the citadel's edge, where galaxies rise like tides. She asks what he sees. Freedom, he answers, and the word pierces her like an unfamiliar weapon. For a heartbeat, her command falters. The winds of creation ripple through her hair, carrying echoes of a truth she cannot unhear. The mortal bows, not in obedience, but in acknowledgement, and turns away. Behind him, the goddess stands motionless, watching the first fracture spread across her perfect dominion. Days in Aethera's dominion have no rhythm, only the pulse of her will. Kale labors among her celestial engines, machines that weave gravity, distill stars, and translate light into matter. She watches from the high balconies, her presence both command and confinement. Each movement he makes defies her invisible touch, each breath a quiet act of rebellion. Yet beneath his defiance lies something she cannot decipher: grace. The goddess begins to alter her voice when she speaks to him, softening commands into questions. The Empire feels her hesitation. The High Keeper warns her that the mortal's resistance is contagion. But when she looks at Kale, she sees the beauty of imperfection. the one truth her dominion never allowed. The citadel hums with unease. Servitors whisper in data tones, sensing the shift between master and mortal. Aethera summons Kale to her chamber, where walls ripple with living light. She asks him why he resists, expecting confession, but his silence is unbroken. The goddess, unused to uncertainty, feels anger rise, a storm of galaxies behind her eyes. Yet when she lifts her hand to strike, he meets her gaze without fear. The energy fades from her fingers. Power obeys hesitation. For the first time, the goddess of dominion cannot command herself. Rumors spread through her realm like solar winds. The mortal speaks to the goddess with no tongue, and she listens. In the sanctum of storms, Aethera kneels beside Kale as he repairs the fractured conduits of creation. He explains their mechanics with quiet patience, his voice steady, his knowledge limited but sincere. She listens, fascinated by the simplicity of mortal logic. When she reaches out to guide his hand, their fingers brush, and the machinery pauses, as though the cosmos itself hesitates to intrude. High Keeper Vornis confronts her beneath the twin suns of the citadel's heart. He warns that love is the first contagion, the unmaking of gods. Aethera dismisses him, though her voice trembles. Alone afterward, she gazes across her empire of obedient stars and wonders if obedience is only another form of death. In the distance, she sees Kale walking the celestial terraces, unguarded and unafraid. She realizes he belongs to no one, not even her. The realization burns hotter than rebellion. When the hourglass of stars resets, Aethera calls him again. This time she does not order, she asks. She requests he tell her of Earth, of mortality, of love. His words fall like stones into still water, rippling through her soul. He tells her that love is not obedience, but surrender of equals. She cannot comprehend, yet something within her shatters. As he turns to leave, she whispers his name, softly, not as a command, but as a prayer. The echo drifts across her realm, and for the first time in eons, a goddess feels small. Aethera dreams for the first time. The universe she commands falls silent as her consciousness slips into the impossible. Sleep. In that dream, she walks a version of her world made of wind and memory, where Kale stands unbound, untouched by divinity. He calls her by name, not with reverence, but with tenderness. And the sound awakens something she thought lost before creation began. When she wakes, light floods her chamber in trembling waves, as if reality itself struggles to contain her emotions. She gazes at her hands, remembering the warmth of that unreal touch, and feels a tremor that is not fear, but longing. The goddess conceals her newfound fragility from her court. She commands the suns to shine brighter, as if to burn away her doubt. Yet her light falters each time Kale crosses her path. He moves through her empire with quiet purpose, mending conduits, tending to creatures made of light, unaware of the chaos he stirs in her soul. Aethera catches herself watching the curve of his shoulders, the rhythm of his breath. The act feels sacrilegious, intoxicating, for a being who has never known want. Desire arrives like a wound that will not heal. That night, she calls him to the Hall of Reflections, a place no mortal has ever entered. Mirrors of living energy reveal countless versions of herself, each flawless, each empty. She commands him to look and asks what he sees. Kale answers simply, "You." Not the goddess, not the divine being, but you. The word breaks her. Her mirrored selves ripple and distort, faces shifting in confusion. Power collapses inward as tears, real and fragile, fall from her eyes. The sound echoes like the first rain in a dying world. High Keeper Vornis feels the disruption rippling through the fabric of her dominion. He approaches her throne, his crystalline form pulsing with alarm. He warns that emotion is infection, that dreams are cracks through which mortality seeps. Aethera listens, but her mind is elsewhere, caught in the echo of Kale's voice. When she dismisses Vornes, her words sound human. Later, as she stands alone, galaxies beneath her feet, she touches the air where Kale once stood and feels warmth that has no source. As the dawn of a new stellar cycle approaches, Aethera descends among her creations disguised in a cloak of shadowed light. She finds Kale working in silence, unaware of her true form. For hours, she observes him. How he hums softly while repairing the failing conduits. How he treats even the smallest sparks as living things. When at last he turns and meets her gaze, there is no recognition of divinity, only connection. The goddess of dominion feels her empire tilt. For the first time since the birth of time, she smiles. The silence between stars begins to speak. Kale wakes to a voice that does not belong to Aethera. A whisper coiling through his thoughts, soft as breath, cold as space. It calls itself the Void, the unmaker of gods. It tells him that love from the divine is only another form of imprisonment. Each night the voice grows clearer, its promises sharper. It shows him images of worlds where no will rules another, where light is free. He does not answer, yet the idea roots deep within him like a forbidden seed. Somewhere beyond the veils of her dominion, Aethera stirs, sensing a fracture not born of her own heart. Aethera feels the intrusion long before she understands it. Her dominion trembles at its edges, where stars begin to dim, as if swallowed by unseen hunger. She searches Kale's chamber and finds the air thick with residual darkness. Her servants recoil. Their binary minds cannot parse corruption. When she touches the air, the whisper slides across her skin. Recognition, not hostility. The void knows her name. Panic flickers through her, an emotion no goddess should know. She calls for Kale, her voice breaking the sanctum's equilibrium. The void speaks again, now between them. It tempts Kale with freedom, whispering that he was never condemned to serve, only to awaken the gods to their own decay. Aethera commands it to depart, her voice shaking space itself, but it laughs, a sound like collapsing stars. The darkness tells her she cannot command what she does not own. Kale steps forward, defying both divinity and abyss, his voice cutting through the echo. I choose my chains. The void stills, and for a heartbeat, even Aethera forgets to breathe. The encounter leaves her weakened. Aethera withdraws to the heart of her citadel, her light dimmed, her power splintered by emotions she cannot name. Kale finds her there, sitting amidst a throne of flickering galaxies. She asks him why he did not take the freedom the void offered. Or should you cure is so, show why. His answer is simple. Because freedom without meaning is another prison. She looks at him and sees not servitude but partnership. And in that truth, her dominion trembles again, this time from within. High Keeper Vornes returns with the judgment of the Pantheon. The void's intrusion is her failure, the mortal's presence the infection. They will reclaim him and purge her dominion. Aethera defies them. Her voice, though weakened, carries defiance that shakes the cosmos. She declares Kale under her protection, not as servant but as equal. The Pantheon's decree ripples through space. Rebellion. As the High Keeper departs, he gazes back at her with sorrow. You have chosen mortality, he says. She watches him fade into light and whispers, perhaps that is what I was meant to be. The Pantheon's decree descends like fire. Across Aethera's dominion, the stars she once ruled begin to rebel, obedience unraveling into chaos. Her temples fracture, her servants dissolve into code and dust. Yet, amid the ruin, Kale stands by her side, his human hands steady as he helps her rebuild what even gods could not preserve. Each act of defiance costs her power. Each breath beside him costs her eternity. As the last of her suns flickers out, Aethera finally understands that love and dominion cannot coexist. She chooses love, and the universe shudders in disbelief. The gods arrive in judgment, 10 radiant beings descending through spirals of flame. Aethera kneels, not from submission but exhaustion. They demand she surrender the mortal and renounce her rebellion. Kale steps forward, placing himself between her and the divine host. The gods do not see courage. They see corruption. Their combined light scorches the chamber, yet Aethera rises again, wings of pure energy unfurling behind her. He is mine, she says, not as ownership, but as love's final declaration. The words ignite the universe. The battle is unlike any creation has known. Galaxies convulse, and time folds into luminous storms. Aethera wields her love as weapon and shield, striking with grace and fury, her light fracturing worlds. Kale, a mortal among gods, moves through the chaos like an anchor to her unraveling divinity. Every wound he suffers pulls her further from immortality, binding her to him in pain and tenderness. When the last judge falls into silence, Aethera collapses beside him, her light flickering like a dying star. When the storm clears, silence reigns. Aethera lies on the shattered floor of her throne room, her radiance dimmed to human glow. Kale cradles her in his arms, his voice a whisper lost in the void. "You are free," he says. Though she barely breathes, her eyes, once galaxies, now reflect only one star. His. She smiles faintly, her voice fragile as starlight. "Then so are you." As her body dissolves into streams of light, Kale feels the warmth fade from his hands. Around them, the universe holds its breath. From the ruins, a new dawn rises, not of light, but of choice. The Pantheon's voice is silent. The void retreats. Kale stands alone before a universe that no longer commands, only listens. In the space where Aethera vanished, he feels her presence lingering. A pulse within the silence, a promise beyond death. He looks up at the stars and knows love has unmade divinity, but in its unmaking, creation has found meaning again. The cosmos breathes, and somewhere, in the unseen folds of existence, the fallen goddess smiles. The echo of Aethera's fall spreads across eternity. The Pantheon summons Kale to stand before the remnants of the divine court, a tribunal formed from dying stars. The hall that once judged him now burns with fractured light, its perfection marred by doubt. They accuse him of blasphemy, of unmaking a goddess. But Kale does not kneel. His voice, though human, carries a resonance that silences even the cosmic wind. He tells them that creation without choice is slavery, and love without freedom is illusion. The gods tremble, not from rage, but recognition. High Keeper Vornis appears to speak for the gods. His crystalline frame fractures with every word, each syllable splitting him between duty and awe. He declares that mortals cannot touch eternity and survive. Kale answers that eternity itself is meaningless without mortality to give it shape. The hall vibrates, light bends toward his voice. For a moment, even Vornis hesitates, his once perfect geometry shivering in admiration and fear. "You have become the mirror we cannot face," he says softly. Then the void stirs once more. Summoned by divine doubt, the voice returns, filling the hall with its whispers. It mocks the gods for their hypocrisy and tempts Kale with power. Ascend, it says, become what they fear. Kale refuses. I do not wish to rule, he says. I wish to live. The words slice through eternity like a blade. The void screams, fracturing into shadow. The gods, shamed and disarmed, see their reflection in the mortal's courage. For the first time, they bow. The trial transforms into revelation. The pantheon, stripped of its certainty, names Kale, not servant nor heretic, but witness. They grant him what no mortal has received, remembrance. His name will be woven into the light of every new star, not as ruler, but as the one who made even gods question themselves. The hall collapses into brightness as the divine law rewrites itself, erasing dominion from creation. Yet, among the brilliance, Kale sees her, Aethera, shimmering in the heart of the light, waiting beyond judgment's edge. In the moment of dissolution, Kale steps forward into the light. The gods vanish, the void recedes, and the hall of judgment becomes horizonless space. He finds himself standing before Aethera, no longer divine nor human, but something between, a being of memory and warmth. She asks him if he regrets unmaking her. He answers with a smile. You were never unmade. You became real. They touch hands, and the universe breathes again, not as dominion or servitude, but as the quiet pulse of mutual existence. Beyond the ruins of the divine court, a silence deeper than creation itself unfolds. Kale and Aethera drift through the endless void, hand in hand, surrounded by starlight yet untouched by time. They are neither god nor mortal, only the echo of both, born of loss and love. Aethera speaks of worlds forgotten, of the loneliness of eternity. Kale listens, and his listening becomes the seed of new existence. In the darkness between them, a single spark forms, a universe conceived not by command, but by consent. The cosmos begins again, quietly, beautifully, without dominion. The spark becomes light, and light becomes breath. Aethera feels creation stir beneath her palms, raw and alive. Kale watches as her expression changes. Wonder replaces sorrow. Curiosity replaces fear. Together they shape worlds with thought alone, yet this time they do not rule. They walk upon the soil they create, taste the air they form, laugh at the imperfect beauty of their mistakes. Each imperfection feels sacred. Aethera realizes that this fragile, fleeting imperfection is eternity's true form. From the distance, remnants of the old pantheon watch. They no longer speak as judges, but as witnesses to something beyond divinity, a harmony of creation through love. The voice of the void lingers on the edge of existence, whispering not temptation but reverence. Even it has changed, softened by the symmetry of choice. Kale and Aethera stand at the center of the forming galaxy, neither commanding nor bowing. For the first time in all recorded time, there is balance. Years, if years still exist, pass in peace. Kale builds sanctuaries of light and stone. Aethera teaches stars to sing. When they rest, they dream together. Not of power or fear, but of each other. In her dreams, she still sees the courtroom where she once ruled, now empty and silent, reclaimed by the quiet mercy of time. In his, he sees Earth, not as memory, but as symbol of what it means to begin again. Their love, no longer forbidden, becomes the pulse of all creation. Imperfect, eternal, free. When the universe exhales for the first time, a wave of light spreads across infinity. Kale and Aethera stand at the center, watching their creation expand outward. No longer gods, but guardians of equilibrium. She turns to him, her eyes soft as dawn. Will it last? She asks. He smiles. Nothing lasts. That's what makes it beautiful. She takes his hand, and together they step into the light, becoming part of the living rhythm they birthed. The cosmos sings, and every star remembers their story, not as myth, but as original.